Kathy Burke, a video editor in Tampa, Florida, collected 44 versions of that editorial from 44 local news markets and lay them side by side, allowing Americans to play them back word for word.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
The effect was chilling.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Orwellian.
It was actually fairly horrifying. About a minute and a half up.
Murder rates across the U.S. are rising. A recent report shows major cities saw a 33% jump in homicides in 2020. According to the Major Cities Chiefs Association, the vast majority of the 66 largest police jurisdictions saw a spike in violent crime last year, and that trend is expected to continue.
Population keeps on bleeding, nation bleeding, still more bleeding economy. Life is funny, skies are sunny, bees make honey, who needs money, monopoly.
It's like I'm just looking for solutions. And, earlier you're talking about the mass shootings. And Joe Rogan, took some heat because he said that it was a mental health issue. And I absolutely agree with him.
If you murder somebody, you have mental health issues.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're
a murderer, if you're not defending yourself against a psychopath,
yeah, that's right.
You may be the psychopath.
Yeah. If you pack on a backpack with lots of extra ammo and you bring in an AK-47 and you go walk into a school, then you've probably got some emotional issues. But the thing is that there's a way to solve this, and that's what the Global Transformation Project that we're involved in, that I was mentioned earlier, is about. And what we're pushing for is a United Nations resolution. It would be non-binding. No country, no school, and no student would have to participate in it. But what we want to do is we want to expose the world and public educators worldwide through a UN resolution to the science on mind-body practices for public education. And anybody who's listening, if you hang on and listen to this program, I've got some science that is just going to alter the way that you view reality in some profound ways. But one of the things that happens when people practice, what are mind-body practices? Well, the big five that have the massive science behind them are meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, and mindfulness. And what they all do is they bring the brain waves into the alpha theta state. That's the meditative state. And the effects this has on the health of the body and the DNA expression and just all kinds of aspects of our being and consciousness are really profound. But one of the things that they found is that when people practice regular meditation, it actually shrinks the stress and fear part of their brain, and it increases the size of the empathy and compassion parts of their brain. And so what you see in schools that employ mind-body practices, because some schools have already done it, is you see a dramatic reduction in bullying rates. And what got me thinking down these lines was I did a presentation at Folsom Prison many years ago, and they brought me in to teach meditation and Tai Chi to the inmates, and I didn't realize it at the time, but they had a program there for 2 years, a meditation program, a Tai Chi Chuan program, and they not only had they brought down the violent incident rates for the participants in the group, but there was a reduction in violent incident rates for the whole prison. And the whole prison wasn't participating in this mind-body practice. And then other prisons, like Apodaca Prison in Mexico, they had a horrifically historic violent incident at their prison. And then they just taught the whole prison how to meditate, and they haven't had a major violent incident from it since then. And so if we were teaching these mind-body practices in public education in age-appropriate ways from kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade, what we're suggesting is 1 hour a day, so it'd be kind of like a mind-body health science PE course, because Tai Chi and yoga give you all the benefits of exercise, but you'd be getting the mind-body benefits as well, so you'd be increasing your empathy and compassion part of your brain. And so just a little change in the brain waves, and these effects last, so it doesn't just make you less violent or kinder when you're doing the meditation, but it actually starts to change your brain, like I said. And so these students would have changed brains. They would have more socially functional brains and more compassionate and empathetic brains, more normal brains, really, because when you get into the science, compassion is a normal state for human beings. You see that in the science. And so, we could be imparting these ancient, time-tested, and science-proven technologies, mental technologies, to students all over the planet, and it wouldn't cost very much. And just a little change in these students' brains would make the difference between them deciding when they get up in the morning if they're going to go out and, have some fun with their friends, or whether they're going to pack a backpack full of extra ammo and go blow up a school. It only takes a tiny little change in consciousness to make that change. So we could dramatically reduce these kind of things.
So the solution is within you.
Yes.
Yeah. It's the problems of our world, the society we live in. The solutions are spiritual.
So you're back on Chi Time with me, Clara Apollo. And just before those station messages, we heard a seminal track from the Beatles as chosen by my guest here on Chi Time, Bill Douglas. It was the Here Comes the Sun. Indeed, one of my favourites as well. And it just really brings that glowing light of possibility and hope in that it is, I think we've all got the potential to have that kindled in our system. And when we can raise our frequency, then that helps everybody around. I mean, it's kind of a win-win for everyone, isn't it, Bill?
Absolutely. Yes. It's like, the last couple of years, we've kind of gone through a time where, our vision of possibility for the future has gotten a little bit squeezed, and that's natural when you're going through, something like we all went through. But now we're emerging from it. And so I think that one of the things that can happen when we go through a catastrophe is that we're more open to possibility. And there's tremendous possibility. I've spent 40 years putting all this science together. Yeah. And I just finished putting it together. It just published on January the 1st, the new second edition of the Gospel of Science. And it became very clear that the Global Transformation Project was the purpose of putting all that science together. And it was just so hopeful. And Here Comes the Sun just so epitomizes the vibe of this book, but more importantly, the Global Transformation Project. Yeah.
So if we could just backtrack a little bit about that and the Global Consciousness Project that Dr. Roger Nelson was involved in. I know that Dr. Roger Janker also spoke on Chi Time about this as well, because it was brought to our attention that when a global event occurs and everybody has a very similar response. And I think, was it the death of Princess Diana, where it just affected the whole world? And were these random generators that Dr. Nelson has, were they around then? Was he picking it up then? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I'm so glad Dr. Roger Yanko was talking about this. He's such a visionary. That's great. And it makes me think, when we first came up with the idea of World Tai Chi Day, I had that vision in my mind, and I thought that was a personal vision. But now, as I've been collecting, this new data for this second book that just came out, we became aware of the Global Consciousness Project that you just referred to. And yes, they had those random event generators all over the planet. And Princess Diana's death was the first significant global event where they noticed the random event generators going off the charts. Just to give everybody a little primer, if you go to globaltransformationproject.org, and you'll see some charts from the Global Consciousness Project, which was born out of Princeton Engineering and Anomalies Research Laboratory over 20 years ago. They actually created it in 1998, same year that we had the first World Tai Chi and Qigong Day event. And that was also the first year that Dr. Effie Chow founded the World Congress on Qigong. So you start to see how these things percolate. And I realized, looking back as I saw this science, that wasn't my vision. This World Tai Chi Day was not my vision, I don't believe, at this point with the science. And it's validating things that I had kind of felt in a way, but didn't know how to articulate. No, I think what I was doing was I was tapping into a global desire, because the World Tai Chi Day spread so rapidly. And people all over the planet were just, there were certain visionaries in different countries or different cities that were just creating these massive events. It was like it was their idea. And I just happened to tap into something that was in the global vibe. And so what the Global Consciousness Project does, just to give everybody a little primer, is if you go to there and you see the charts, you'll see there's a zero line that goes right across the middle. And that is kind of where a random event generator's production hovers, because what it's like is it's like an electronic coin flipper. So if you flip coins, I think it's 200 times per second, which is what these random event generators do. It's going to diverge some, but it's going to stay on that zero line, because that's the statistical probability. It's going to stay around that. It's going to be 50-50 ultimately, if you look at it long enough. And, that's what keeps the lights on in Las Vegas. They know that's the case. But what happened during Princess Diana's death was it veered way off of the normal track. And then they realized something's going on here. And so then they started to look at, in 2007, I contacted the Global Consciousness Project, because I just started to become aware of their work. And I said, we organize this World Tai Chi and Qigong Day every year, where, people all over the planet are doing Tai Chi and Qigong together. And I said, if you guys could you guys look at your data that day and see if you see anything? And this is 2007. Well, they never got back to me. And so I was really disappointed. I just thought, oh, well, we didn't have any impact. We weren't super big at that time. Maybe tens of thousands of people at that point around the planet participating. But then when I was working on the second edition of the book to come out in 2022, I contacted them because I just wanted to find out if any of these massive, because now after World Tai Chi Day, there's been other events that have spawned. And like the International Day of Yoga is the United Nations project, where they do the same thing we do with yoga all over the planet for a 24-hour period. And then there's other, international mass mind-body events that are held. And so, they got back to me, the Princeton-born Global Consciousness Project, they got back to me like very quickly. And they said, we've been observing like 100 of these. And right at the top was World Tai Chi and Qigong Day.
Wow. And they hadn't told you.
Yeah, no, they hadn't told me. And so that's how I found out, and I was able to get it in the book before it published.
How wonderful, Bill. That's amazing.
So exciting. And so it veered off 0.05, and 0.05 probability, that's considered statistically significant. So like if they were looking at a drug and its side effects, if there was a side effect that was 0.05, that would affect the rollout of that drug. That's how science works. And so World Tai Chi Day was 0.05. I believe the World Yoga Day was 0.05. And so they found this happening over and over again during these. And so what their ultimate realization was that when groups of people, and it can, some of these events only involve thousands of people around the planet, but groups of people, when they come together in healing and compassion states of coherent consciousness, which is what Tai Chi and Qigong and the Big Five produce, that alpha state, that they have a bigger impact on the planetary consciousness than even events of, horrific fear or tragedy.
These kind of things.
So the solution is within you.
Yes.
Yeah. It's the problems of our world, the society we live in, the solutions are spiritual.
Well, they're scientific. It's consciousness science, because the verbiage is really important, because we're going to get this into public schools, and so we have to, make sure that we use the proper description, because the way that I approach it is from just a science-based. Now, I've studied mind.
You don't want to muddy it with it having like a religious overtone, is that?
Yes, that's correct, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to, because there's mind-body practices that are taught that aren't taught in a religious way, and they have that effect. They have that effect on people. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, if we were teaching public school kids all over the planet how to do mind-body practices, the science would show, all kinds of myriad benefits. It would save society trillions of dollars year after year. But, if you wanted to use other verbiage, really what it would be, it would be a mass global spiritual awakening. Because some of the science, I mentioned that when I was at Folsom Prison.
Won't that be bad for business, though?
Yeah, that might. Businesses.
Yeah.
It'd be really good for Tai Chi and Qigong and yoga and meditation teachers.
Sure, herbal teas would go up. Yeah, but right. I mean, as far as...
People would probably start eating more organic food.
Yeah, javelin missiles, though. That might not sell as well.
That's true. They might not. And also Madison Avenue, they might not do quite as well, because people would be attracted to things that are...
Yeah, people didn't need to consume to fill the void, the hole inside of their soul. Yeah, that might be bad for business, too. Well, if people realize that they're actually complete... Yeah. And that they've been lied to, and that everything they need is within inside of them, and they just need to acknowledge that and embrace that.
Yeah, that's actually one thing that I wanted to mention earlier when you were talking about kind of the state that we're in. I have a sense of kind of a larger picture, maybe because I'm like 65 years old or whatever, but it's like, I've seen so many waves of how things go socially and globally and everything. And, I really think all the things that we're going through are part of a mass global awakening. I think people have to get to the point where they realize that they can't put all their faith in Sean Hannity or Rachel Maddow or Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden or, you can just go on down the list. What people are starting to realize is the only thing that really matters is truth and compassion. Because that's how we're wired. It's from our DNA. There's research that shows our DNA is just naturally wired for compassion. And so I think that people are kind of, what's happening with all, the shrillness of media and propaganda and all these things is that people are being awoken, masses of people, all over the planet. And they're just starting to realize that the only thing that really matters is, them and their neighbors and how well people that they know are doing. And, it's like all the, it's like, like I said, I've been an activist for 40 years. And, looking back now, I realized I was manipulated. I was manipulated by media to be, to just think the worst about people. Mm-hmm. Like I have a son-in-law who's a Republican. And, and I had a lot of prejudices against him. At first, it's like I tried to override it, but it's like they were there. And, just over the last couple of years, the way I've seen the way that the media manipulates and, makes us divided from one another, it's like I got to know him on a better level because I realized that he's not the boogeyman, that I had been sold, for so many years and I bought into. And so I think, that's people are starting to wake up to the fact that their neighbors, their neighbors aren't dangerous. If you watch Fox, or if you watch Fox, you're starting to awaken to the fact that your neighbors aren't communists, and if you watch MSNBC, you start to wake up to the fact that your neighbors aren't Nazis.
Maybe, but some people really feed into that paranoia. Some people think that the reason why, the people that went to the Capitol on January 6th, or people that voted for, Joe Biden are the worst people in the world, and how can we live with these people? I mean, the prejudices that have been plugged in for people so they can focus in on those and find something to be upset with. It's pretty amazing, and that's like the opposite of that consciousness that you're talking about. It's the it's the manipulation of that same global awareness, right? But it's through social media. It's through it's through a middleman. It's through some sort of artificial construct that is clearly manipulated. Because even though we're compassionate people, and that's probably what we default to, we also are incredibly tribalistic, and we love to blame people. We love to find our Judas goat.
Well, that's how propaganda works. It plays on our natural, weaknesses.
Sure.
And tries to
natural biases against people that we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That's correct. Yeah, but it's just, I think people are just, they're just seeing that the media is not really telling the true story, and it doesn't matter whether it's left or right or whatever. I'm talking about corporate.
Oh, sure. The corporate media, what used to be called the mainstream media, but can't be called the mainstream media anymore because it doesn't have the same pull that people, not this program, but people that have developed shows on the internet. From Joe Rogan to Jimmy Dore, these others that have a much larger audience than CNN. They said that when CNN lost the contracts to be in a bunch of airports throughout America, their viewership went down by half because most of CNN's viewership at this point was people waiting for an airplane.
Yeah, that was when I watched CNN.
Right,
when I was waiting for an airplane. Yeah.
So those old narrative generators, corporate press, they're dying. People aren't listening to them anymore. They're not focused on them anymore.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's an awakening going on. And, like Gil Scott-Heron said, the revolution is not going to be televised.
Population keeps on breeding, nation bleeding, still more bleeding economy. Life is funny, skies are sunny, bees make honey.
I just wanted to mention, just real quick, this discussion series, this monthly discussion series, Dr. C.J. Rhodes and Siobhan Hutchinson here has really been the backbone of this thing. And this has been one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life because, as I mentioned before we turned the cameras on, this is the most important science being done in the history of science, according to Nikola Tesla. And I don't think there's anybody in science that could argue with Nikola Tesla. And so, these people should be on all the major TV programs talking about the science that we expose people to in this extraordinary series that's Dr. C.J. Rhodes and Siobhan Hutchinson have made possible. And it's just, we organized World Tai Chi Day, which Princeton University Director of Research showed how we had actually changed global consciousness. But I've got to tell you, even though we've experienced doing Tai Chi with the whole planet for 24 years now, and that we actually changed global consciousness, this discussion series has been like the most spectacular event of my life. To have the ability to sit here with these folks and talk about the most important science being done in the history of science. And this platform provides data and science and information that has profoundly changed not only the way I do Tai Chi and Qigong and meditation, but the way I teach Tai Chi and Qigong and meditation, and the way that I do everything in my life. This has been truly life transformative for me to be exposed to all this data and all this information about these mind-body practices that I've been doing for 45 years. And I don't think there's a mind-body person on the planet who wouldn't experience the same benefits that I have from this discussion series. So it's really important that everybody share these videos that we produce for free. One of the things that that we got involved with was you may or may not be familiar with it, I don't know, and there may be different versions of this. I'm not trying to just promote this one company, but there's a thing called Muse, a headband that'll sync with your phone, and then it can detect your brain waves, and then you can find out when you're in alpha state, essentially, or the percentage of time you're in alpha state. And that was extremely helpful. And then, as we, became aware of all the science that was just showing that it's really a huge miss by humanity not to be teaching kids how to do mind-body practices starting in kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. We have a United Nations resolution. Everybody can sign the petition to advocate for a non-mandatory, suggestive United Nations resolution advocating mind-body education K through 12 in public education worldwide. And what we're advocating is what we call the Big Five, because they have, in some cases, millennia of research behind them, but they have a huge amount of modern medical scientific research. And that's Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation, yoga, and mindfulness. And so as I'm going through all this science, it becomes increasingly apparent that what makes them special is that alpha state component. In Tai Chi, we talk about Wu Wei and flow and things like that. But, from doing Tai Chi and Qigong for 45 years, it's real obvious to me that when I'm in that state, it's alpha state. Because you get, once one of my students got me the Muse headband, it was like, that's when I realized, oh, okay, that's what this feeling is. And so we realize now that, if we get this into public education, it'll be quite easy to determine whether children are going into alpha state. And it wouldn't be like we're introducing a foreign concept. Dr. Spady mentioned that Dr. Bruce Lipton suggested that kids are in alpha state a lot of the time up into about 7 years old. And then that's when learning starts to slow down and everything, and we start to get we start to lose touch with that ability to go into alpha state, which again I think is quite natural, because you were mentioning your experience in nature and how these things and some other aspect of this. And I remember when I was a little kid, and I would walk in the wheat fields when the wheat was ripe, because I lived in a small farming town, and I'd walk in the wheat fields and you just have that drone of the wind blowing through those wheat heads, and there was nobody out there but me and my dog, and I realize now, looking back, I was going into alpha state. It would happen, and then I would come out of it within a couple of seconds, and I think, wow, what just happened? Where did I go? You know what I mean? Because I wasn't in the normal state of consciousness. And so I've been wanting to ask you, given our focus, our project is, we want to get 100,000 signatures at least. I mean, really, we feel like we should be able to get millions of signatures, because mind body's all over the planet, and take it to the United Nations. We're going to contact every UN mission in the world to co-sponsor a resolution for non-mandatory mind-body education camp suggestion for public education worldwide, and then use that as a vehicle to provide educators all over the world with the science. And we think it should be an easy sell, because the science shows that regular meditators, their IQ increases, can increase as much as 20 points, and their GRE reading skill increases, their math proficiency skill, their verbal fluency. These are all the things that we want students to be able to do. And in study after study, test scores go up when people practice these things. And so we don't think it should be a hard sell. And the UN passed the International Day of Yoga in 2015 with a record number of co-sponsoring nations, 177 co-sponsoring nations. And so we feel like the world is ready for something like this, because it would save trillions of dollars in saved healthcare costs. If you look at the data, Dr. Herbert Benson put together, and also Kaiser Permanente did a 20-year study, and they determined that about 70% of the illnesses sending people to their doctors were caused by stress. So we're talking trillions of dollars in savings, not to mention the reduction in global violence, and that science is massive as well. So yeah, I was just curious to get your feel on this project that we're involved in, and we call it the Global Transformation Project because the science shows that's what it would do.
Absolutely.
We would like to focus on this project in which Bill and Angela are integrating and fostering, and which is the Global Transformation Project.
Global Transformation Project of yours. Né? What do you consider the best accomplishment to get this, after you explain what it is? And what is the major weakness or barrier you think about this project? And the third question, what are the strengths of this project?
What happened was we spent about 40 years creating, we didn't know what we were creating at the time. We just started collecting all the we were trying to scientifically understand what we were going through in our lives when we started practicing Tai Chi and Qigong and yoga and meditation. Because, you know, you start having a lot of experiences, and at that time, nobody really understood it other than from an Eastern kind of esoteric way. It wasn't a science way, but over these 40 years, there's been a ton of science. And so we're the first generation in human history to have all this science behind mind body, and it's massive. And so as we were collecting all this science, and then the science that showed that it could make people's IQs higher, that it could increase their verbal fluency, their math proficiency skills, their focus and their immunity, reduce stress, anxiety, depression, insomnia, all these things that, school students are dealing with, major issues and benefits that would profoundly change the educational system. So what that, when we were finishing it, we decided to put in there a vision of the Global Transformation Project. And that's exactly how World Tai Chi Day started, because we were writing the Complete Idiot's Guide to Tai Chi and Qigong, and we put a chapter in there called World Tai Chi Day. And that was before it was really World Tai Chi Day. It was a vision that we had, and so we put it in the book. And so we did the same thing with the new second edition of the Gospel of Science. We put a chapter in there called Global Transformation Project, because it just became so obvious that this, if we had this in public schools, it would solve so many problems on so many levels in society, save trillions of dollars year after year. Big challenge that we're having right now at this stage, because it's going to go through stages, but at this stage, the biggest problem isn't the structure out there in the world. The biggest challenge is getting the mind-body community to find their esteem and start admitting that these things are life transformative things, because we've all experienced it. That's why we still do this stuff. We have all transformed our lives with this stuff, and there's a mountain of science that shows that this could be happening with children all over the planet. And so as a global mind-body community, we have to let go here and admit the obvious, which is that it's crazy that we don't have mind-body education in public schools. And then once the mind-body community catches the fire of this reality, and then starts spreading this, we could have millions of signatures to go to the United Nations mission, and we could change the future of humanity. The benefits of this would be passed down to future generations for the rest of humanity.
That's right. Beautiful. Yes.